Hey Kaulia, thanks for doing this and taking your time to be on my channel to share about your experiences, whatever you have accomplished in more than a decade-long journey of software engineering. And I know you're going through a busy time, so thanks for taking your time.
Thank you, Sukrit, for having me. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, great. So I think let's dive just right in. So you're now a staff software engineer at HubSpot. You have more than
Yeah.
12 years of experiences. So how has the journey been like, and what has kept you going through in tech field? Today, what happens is a lot of people start switching to being a software development manager, and that seems to
hmm
be an easier path, maybe, or I don't know what the reasons are. So, what has kept you going to stay in the software engineering for so long?
yeah. So just to give a little bit of background, when I
Mm-hmm,
started back in 2010, which
mm-hmm,
is 12 years before before now, and I did not think that I would continue as an individual contributor. I always thought, because
mm-hmm,
then it was a regular path for any engineer that joins any company. So I joined a
mm-hmm,
company called Infosys, and I saw my seniors, I saw my colleagues that had the similar ambitions. So they
mm-hmm,
wanted to so the regular path was software engineer, and then senior software engineer. Then you became like a technical lead, and then architect, and then manager,
mm-hmm,
and so there are these paths only. So
mm-hmm,
I also wanted to be the same. I also
mm-hmm.
wanted to become a manager. I
Okay.
did not know anything about what it takes to become a manager or what it's like to become a manager.
Yeah.
And over the years, that has definitely changed. I have gathered more clarity.
Mm-hmm,
And what I think, I don't think it's easier to get on the management side. It's
mm-hmm,
definitely slightly less technical, I would say, because you're not
mm-hmm,
deep into coding, and you're not deep into problem solving, but you're solving some other type of problems at a high level, right? For myself, I think there were two reasons. One, I like to solve problems, being
mm-hmm,
there, not at a high level, but being in the depth. And the second part, I don't like the part of people management that comes along with the management track. I feel that managing people is more difficult than managing machines, and I'm better at managing machines. So I would stay there for some time at least.
Okay.
Uh, and the other part I like about being an individual contributor is that I am the owner of my time.
Mm-hmm,
So I don't have to spend time on one-on-ones with for people, for others,
mm-hmm,
to make them a better engineer, to make them or to help them in their careers, because I think I can be my best when I am spending time on myself, and I'm not reached a position where I can help others to grow in their careers. And I'm not
mm-hmm.
good at that, to be honest. So uh,
Okay.
I would like to do what I'm good at this point.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe
mm-hmm.
in coming years I'll get more clarity. I'll just get bored of writing code, and I'll move to like a managerial position. But it's not happening anytime soon. So that's been my thought process so far.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty amazing that you realize your like strengths and weaknesses. A lot of people don't get to know that what they really like to do, what they really want to do.
Yeah,
So, as you said that you initially when you started, you also did not have a clear path, but later on you realized.
yeah.
So, I'm pretty sure you must have done like really interesting projects along the way. So, what was the most challenging or the most interesting problem that you solved and you really liked doing it?
Yeah. So I think there is this is a very subjective question, to be honest. It's a
Mm-hmm.
broad, and it has context to it. So
Okay.
I would say, like, I was fortunate to work on different projects that were really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And since so when I was young, something else was interesting for me. If I talk about now, that the same thing might not be very interesting for me. So that has
Okay.
changed over the period of time for sure.
Mm.
And also the type of interesting things may also change. For example, uh, back in I think 4 years earlier from now,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I was working on a project to, split up a monolith architecture into,
Mm.
experimenting
Microservice.
microservices. It was a
Mm.
new thing back then.
Mm.
Not a lot of things were available easily
Mm.
in the market. So that was challenging for me. That was
Mm.
also very interesting because I learned a new tech
Mm.
stack.
Mm.
I solved some of the challenging problems. So the biggest problem is, of course, not how to not to impact the customer because it's a live uh,
Mm.
application, and
Mm.
how to make those migrations successful. That was the most challenging part, of course, because we have to do that in a slow manner, uh,
Mm.
moving the traffic slowly to the new service, making sure everything is fine. Then there's data, there's state that the application manages, and all that. So there's a lot of complexity involved there. So that was really challenging and really interesting for me.
Mm.
Um, on the other hand, I've worked on projects that I had to write code from scratch. There was nothing at all. So
Mm.
we built this billing pipeline at Twilio,
Mm.
and we were running, really fast. We were
Mm.
iterating really fast, talking to the customers, and the scale was really high because we also wanted to move the existing application to the new billing pipeline.
Mm.
And it was interesting and challenging because we were trying a new stack. We were trying Kafka streams for the first
Okay.
time, and
Mm.
there were a lot of challenges because billing itself is challenging. We are dealing with people's money.
Payments. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't want, repeat transactions. You don't want
Mm.
some bugs in there. You want to run a lot of reconciliation jobs, and you want to test a
Mm.
lot. So
Mm.
that itself brings a lot of complexity. And doing that at scale, doing it
Mm.
with a new stack that you
Mm.
don't really understand completely, itself was a challenge. We got some help from amazing folks at Confluent,
Okay.
and
Mm.
that really helped us. But overall, understanding not just how things work at default settings, but tuning it for your own use case was a really challenging one. And more
Mm.
recently, I've been working on some of the communication pipelines at HubSpot, where
Mm.
you have to send billions of emails, billions of messages on different mediums.
Mm.
So text messages, emails, WhatsApp. And all that is pretty challenging because, again, customer communication is challenging. You don't want to spam a customer, so there's a
Mm.
lot of rate limiting coming into picture and different types of rate limiting. And then sending emails is, again, it's a hard problem because you get different types of bounces, different types of issues. So it's a different type of interesting project, I would say, that I never
Mm.
really worked on.
Mm.
So yeah, there is not one project, but I have to pick one.
Mm.
If you want me to pick one, I would pick the
Mm.
one where I built the billing pipeline from scratch, because that was an amazing
Yeah.
experience.
You have to actually take care of a lot of things because it's anything with money you have to take care of a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. So to share an incident,
Mm.
it didn't happen with us. It happened with the old pipeline. So there was
Mm-hmm.
a bug, and it was overcharging, or having multiple transaction in some use cases or some edge
Mm-hmm.
cases. What happened was, some of the startups, so it was like pay as you go. So customer has to just put in the credit cards,
Mm.
and they will be charged for every usage that happens. So
Mm.
because of a bug, it happened once that they were just charged a lot, like
Mm-hmm. Okay.
more than double. And
Mm.
since it was a startup, they had
Mm.
limited credit amount in their credit card, so they were just blocked. So the credit card
Mm-hmm.
was blocked, and they couldn't do anything. So they had
Mm.
to talk to the bank, they had to talk to us, we had to
Mm.
refund them money, and all that. So it was a very initial phase of billing. It didn't happen with us, but I'm
Mm.
just trying to emphasize on the seriousness when it comes to money of your customers.
Yeah, yeah, it's really important. I completely agree to that. Used to be a part of tax team at Amazon. So
Hmm.
in the forms that we give to the people in the US, they have all the amount of transactions they have done with the company. So in that, the amount should be correct because if the person has done less business and we are giving them more amounts that they
Yeah,
file to the government, so yeah, that's pretty bad experience.
yeah. Absolutely. And then there were other kinds of projects where,
Hmm.
it was not only about coding. It
Mm-hmm.
was very little code that I had to write, but the project itself was, identifying what's happening, because it was a legacy one. No one understood. It was a new
Hmm.
team, and I was assigned to, figure out, looking at a lot of data and figure out where we are, losing money, where
Hmm.
where does the bug exist that, we
Okay.
are our customers are charging us more, or not our
Hmm.
customers but our merchants are charging us more.
Hmm.
So I had to go through a lot of data, run some scripts on top of it, figure out where the data is, wrong, or where the discrepancy lies. So that was a different type of project, and I like doing all this. So it need not
Okay.
be like writing code from scratch, building something new, but it can
Hmm.
also be problem solving, where the problem, but it's a hard problem because you have to look at a lot of data. You'll of
Hmm.
course write a lot of code just to figure
Mm-hmm.
out, just to clean up that data, and more type of data engineering type of thing, I would say.
Hmm.
So that was also interesting, but not that challenging, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people do like that, but I think with that also comes a fear that like this problem is quite challenging. What if we are not able to solve this, or we
Yeah,
commit something really wrong? So how do
yeah,
you overcome those fears?
absolutely. I mean, first of all, if you like problem solving, you
Mm,
won't you don't need to fear about anything, right? You have to take step incrementally. You
mm-hmm.
won't find the solution right away, right? You have
Mm,
to give yourself time, and you have to communicate that as well. So if you don't communicate, if you sit on at your desk, you don't
mm,
communicate to anyone else that what is going on. If you're blocked, you have to ask for help. Let's say you
mm,
don't have data, or you don't have
mm,
enough data to figure out what's going on. You have to ask for data, or you have to raise some flags that, oh, you don't have data, you can't do this, right?
mm,
So I think splitting down the problem,
mm,
solving it incrementally, definitely
mm,
helps. And third, keeping the team and keeping the stakeholders uh,
mm,
updated, it also makes life easier. Most of the times pressure builds up when
mhm,
your stakeholders don't know what you're doing. They have
mhm,
high expectations because they don't know where you're blocked.
mm,
um, or simply you're just stuck, you're hesitating to ask for help. That is not the way to go. You should always
mm,
be able to ask for help. Of course, not for simple problems, not for repetitive problems, but
mm,
things that you're not sure of, it's okay to ask for help. So I think
mm,
that will ease the process a bit, and uh, confidence, and that fear of problem solving will go away
mhm,
with time. It takes time. So whenever you work on a complicated project, whenever there is high pressure, tight deadlines, you will feel pressure. That's okay,
mm,
that's totally normal.
mhm,
But it will normalize with time. You will get better at it, because
mm.
I think you start dealing with people a little bit better,
Yeah.
even if your problem solving skills are at the same level. So I would
Mm,
say there, yeah, dealing with people and improving on problem solving is the way to go.
okay. So in all this time that it has been like more than 10 years, so in all this time, I'm sure that the technology has changed quite a lot. I think we didn't have much more use of cloud like 7 to 8 years back. So it has been changing constantly.
Yeah,
And like now you just mentioned that you used Kafka. So
yeah.
like how this has changed with you, like in your career, how what changes you have observed, like what kind of work you were doing earlier and how has it changed now?
It has changed drastically. I mean,
Okay.
of course, I'm sure there are folks who are way more senior than me, who have seen
Mm-hmm.
really old tech stack as well. But when
Mm-hmm.
I started,
Mm-hmm.
I did not use Maven. I did not
Okay.
use any build tool. We were
Okay.
using maybe something like Ant
Mm-hmm.
build tool or something, and the entire development pipeline was like quarterly. So we used to code,
Okay.
we used to publish to a branch, and
Mm.
then suddenly after one quarter we would say, oh, this is the deployment day, and we would sit
Okay.
together, whole team, we would deploy to the production. Of course there was not much traffic. I mean,
Mm.
if you talk like 12 years ago, there was
Yeah.
not everyone was having internet, right?
Internet. Yeah.
So, and I was working at a for a US project. So
Hmm.
it was an insurance domain, so it wasn't huge scale.
Hmm.
So we were pretty much relaxed on production. Even if we switch to the new version, we would
Hmm.
slowly test it. If we figure out, oh, there's an issue, we would roll back.
Roll it
So
back.
it was
Hmm.
kind of laid back, but still it
Hmm.
was challenging because we didn't have that much tech stack.
Hmm.
Open source was not huge as it is
Hmm.
right now, so
Hmm.
you can get anything what you want just by running some Docker commands right now. But
Hmm.
then it was pretty challenging because we were using these proprietary databases where we did
Hmm.
not have much visibility into. If we wanted to tune some things, we had to talk to database admins, and
Hmm.
they almost hated us because we knew nothing about databases.
Hmm.
When I started my career, I knew only how to run SQL queries, how joins work, basic
Hmm.
Java,
Hmm.
not even advanced. We used servlet JSPs and writing JSPs and EJBs,
Okay.
enterprise Java beans for remote calls. So that
Hmm.
was all very tricky and cumbersome to do.
Hmm.
Nowadays, it has definitely changed a lot. Um
Hmm.
with cloud, with the advent of cloud, and the power of cloud at your hands, I
Hmm.
think it has changed drastically because you can build applications very quickly. But at
Hmm.
the same time, the challenges in terms of scale and the expectations of the users have also changed. So, as I
Okay.
said, we were fine with a little bit of downtime 12 years
Hmm.
ago. Now, if we talk about downtime, you will lose your job
Yeah.
because no one needs a downtime. So
Yeah.
that has changed. So I'm not saying it has become easier. It has definitely has its own new challenges,
Hmm.
but the way you think about problems is definitely changed. Talking about Kafka,
Hmm.
I started working with Kafka maybe around 5 years ago. Uh,
Okay.
it was at a very low level where I
Hmm.
would write like Kafka consumers at a low level, and consume events, and
Hmm.
just process it and send to another Kafka queue, or store it in a database or something like that. So very basic processing. But
Hmm.
now Kafka has evolved into an ecosystem. It has like
Hmm.
tons of technologies around it.
Hmm.
You can do stream processing at a very high scale. You can
Hmm.
there's exactly once processing.
Hmm.
There is Kafka Connect, there is KSQL, there is
Hmm.
Ktable where you can also maintain a state. So
State. Yeah.
a lot of it has changed the way you build applications because of
Hmm.
the consumer needs have also changed. So they
Hmm.
need real time. Nowadays we
Hmm.
talk about real time, right? It cannot take like few seconds to load a page or to see a
Page. Yeah.
metric. You need real
Hmm.
time because you have to
Hmm.
make quick decisions, because you have a lot of money at stake, a lot of customer trust at stake.
Hmm.
So this has definitely changed, and keeping up with the open source tech stack has definitely helped me, because open source has becoming huge,
Hmm.
and it will grow. I mean, the
Yeah.
future is open source basically. A lot of
Hmm.
companies, a lot of big tech giants are built out of open source technologies. If we talk about
Yeah.
Confluent, if we talk about data stacks,
Hmm.
there is Startree for Pino.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of companies who have built from the open source. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think it has changed drastically.
So, like, to learn all these things, what resources did you follow? These open source, the websites, I think they have pretty good documentation. So, apart from that, like, what other resources you used?
I like reading books, so I don't
Okay.
read a lot of fiction or something like that. But I am more on the technical book side, so
Hmm.
I try to read books. And when I say read books, not like page to page, like page one to
Hmm.
page n,
Hmm.
but I read the sections that I am interested into. So if I have to learn Kafka,
Hmm.
I would first understand, um, why I want to learn Kafka, for example. Maybe it is a stupid reason that, oh, I want to use it at work. I want to learn
Hmm.
it because I have to work, otherwise I lose my job. So that is where I will pick something like Kafka in Action, where you
Hmm.
just have to get quick start, understand Kafka, and write code. But it helps if you spend enough time and understand it in depth as well. So
mm,
I read some white papers, I read blogs on Kafka,
mm,
and then it's about whatever theoretical knowledge you have, just just apply it, right? So
mm,
nowadays it's easy to build applications.
mm,
Previously, the even the laptops and all that were not easily accessible. I did not have laptop when I got my first job. I
okay.
bought it once I was 1 year into the industry.
Mm,
So I couldn't code when I was at home because we were not given laptops. We were having
mm,
desktop machines,
yeah.
and you did not have access to anything at home. So
Mm,
yeah, that was a different time. But nowadays you have your laptop, you have powerful machines, you can run like
mm,
several Docker containers, run
mm,
like a cluster of some really complicated application.
mm,
um, so learn by doing, and
okay.
test it out. And
Mm,
if the documentation is not good, figure out why it's not good, right? Because
mm,
it's easy to say, oh, this is not good, but what is
mm,
missing? Just
mm,
just try to suggest to the community or add it,
mm,
or at least write it for your own self.
okay.
Even if you don't share it with others, write a blog
Mm,
on it.
mm,
So that is a great way. So I started writing some blogs, but I was too lazy to do that. But I would recommend writing blogs because that helps validating the knowledge as well. Because
yeah.
of course, writing blog and teaching something is not the same thing.
Mm,
If you're
right.
writing blog, it's more like, okay, you're just sharing your knowledge. That
Mm,
but stay open for corrections. If there are
mm,
some mistakes that you're doing, stay open, because that's how
mm,
you would learn. So I also learned from there by sharing my knowledge, by attending some tech talks. So yeah, books is my number one resource, and second is by
mm,
just using it. Third, I look at a lot of tech talks. Recently I shared the DevOps Belgium playlist on my
mm,
LinkedIn. And
okay.
those guys have like really amazing set of playlist. They like
Mm,
just say the name and you will find something there. Like it's about Maven, Kotlin, Scala, Akka,
mm,
Java, JVM tuning. It's about scalable architecture, testing frameworks, everything. So there's a
mm,
lot of amazing tech talks, really lengthy, like sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours as well. But you need to spend time, right? So that's
mm,
that's why you're here.
mm,
And the fourth one, which is I've started recently, is
mm.
by doing podcasts. So when I'm
Okay.
talking to someone and I'm talking
Mm,
to experts,
mm,
definitely I am doing a lot of research beforehand. Otherwise, I cannot ask them questions.
okay.
That is a great way of learning. So talk to people,
Mm,
talk to like-minded people, talk to experts, ask
mm,
them questions. You will learn a lot. So that is the last resource which I've you know uh, gathered very recently, to be honest.
mm. Okay. So, like you mentioned about learn by doing. So, what if someone does not gets opportunity to actually do that kind of work in the organization they are working? So, did you do any side projects too? Like, even if you want to do some side projects, like, what would you recommend someone to do? Like, just take up any application and just start coding, or what would be the right way?
Yeah, it depends on the level you're at. So
Hmm.
let's say if you're really new. So
Hmm.
I get this question sometimes on LinkedIn as well, that, oh, can you suggest some side projects that we can work on? So
Hmm.
I cannot suggest because I don't know you. I don't
Yeah.
know your level, right?
Hmm.
So if you are, let's say you are a seasoned engineer, you just
Hmm.
want to brush up on new things, then
Hmm.
I can suggest something new. If you are
Hmm.
like junior engineer and you have very little experience on software engineering and working on real projects, that will be something different. So I
Hmm.
would say understand your situation first.
Hmm.
If person X is doing open source, he's writing his own database or
Hmm.
anything else,
Hmm.
don't jump there, right?
Okay.
Start with very basic. So if you don't know, let's say, design patterns,
Hmm.
if you don't know structuring your code such that it's clean, it's following the best practices, start with very little, machine level, the coding exercise that we have, like low level design, I think that's how it is called. uh,
Hmm.
so write some of the code like that. Start from very basic, then write some web applications. So there are tons of resources available to write web applications, right? How would
Hmm.
you write like a simple blog application where people can come in, write a blog, Even
Mm.
if you want to learn, stream processing, for example, you are at
Mm.
a different level because you want to learn stream processing. So I would expect you have basic
You know about, yeah.
programming and
Mm.
language, web applications, a
Mm.
lot of other things. So just consume any live stream from, let's say, Twitter or something. Do your
Mm.
own processing. Just
Okay.
look at their blogs, what they are doing.
Mm.
And then once you do the first step, like you build the basic application, you will get new ideas. I
Mm.
don't have to tell you. You will
Mm.
get your
Okay.
own new ideas. You will figure out some new problems that you are going to solve. So
Mm.
the idea is to not s- kind of spoon feed that, oh, build this and you will learn this. The idea is to
Yeah.
just spark some curiosity,
Explore.
that like
Mm.
explore. Exactly.
Mm.
So exploring things needs some curiosity, and curiosity comes from the first step. So if you are not taking the first step of reading
Mm.
something, of being, just keeping your ears open, I think that will make you more curious. If you love technology, if you love problem solving. So
Mm.
yeah, that is the thing. So I cannot suggest any direct projects to all the
Mm.
people who have asked me this
Yeah. Mm.
as well. But yeah, I understand your context. If you are like a very experienced engineer and want to learn any new open source, let's say you want to try out RocksDB, but you
Mm.
have like really good knowledge of other databases, that's a
Mm.
great way to start RocksDB. But if you don't know how, let's say, MySQL works, or how
Mm.
basic queries work,
Mm.
that might be a little odd.
Mm.
You can still do it. It's not that that's a prerequisite, but you might not get enough motivation because you are jumping the gun. You're not taking the basic step first. So yeah, stick to the foundation and explore more. That's the way to go.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a great suggestion for anyone who is looking to start some new projects. Actually, when I write some blogs, I also have some curiosity that I want to know about this particular topic, how this happens, and that causes to rise a lot of new questions in my mind
Yeah,
itself, which
yeah,
causes me to search through different other websites. Yeah, so I think that's the best
absolutely.
way. Hmm.
Yeah. One point I want to emphasize, because I've seen this happening a lot recently, is let's
Hmm.
say you follow someone who you
Hmm.
think, okay, this guy or this girl knows a lot.
Hmm.
He or she is posting a lot on LinkedIn or writing a blog. It's great to follow, right? But don't
Hmm.
follow blindly, right? So if
Yeah.
they come and post about something,
Hmm.
uh, be like a, have some questions around it. Don't just
Hmm.
consume knowledge. Oh, okay,
Hmm.
this guy said this, let's consume, this is the truth. It's not
Yeah.
like that, right?
Hmm.
You need to ask some question. There is always context. There is always some things that even that person might not
Could
have
not be
thought about,
covered.
right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you can write your own questions. You can learn from it. You can also contradict, right?
Hmm.
Because not everything. For example, there's tons of discussion on microservice and monolithic
Hmm.
application and all that, right?
Yeah.
People just think more microservices are like
Better.
silver bullet. They
Yeah.
solve everything, right? It's okay to contradict, because
Hmm.
there is context. It's not like
Yeah.
monolith doesn't work at all. There are
Yeah.
companies who are using tons of monolith applications, right?
Yeah. Instagram uses it. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Hmm.
there's always context. So even if you follow someone, even if you read a book,
Hmm.
even if you read that, ask questions, because reading a book, it's not a story, right? It's not like a
Hmm.
literature you're reading. Okay, you're consuming something. You can't ask questions because it's not logical or something, right? It's a
Hmm.
story. But technical books, it has logic, it has
Hmm.
context, it has a lot of mathematics as well, depending on
Hmm.
what book you're reading. So ask questions, highlight, go back and look for other resources to strengthen your knowledge. Maybe
Hmm.
that book doesn't have it covered in a well, really depth, real depth. So you might have to explore on your own. So yeah, that is one point I really want to emphasize here.
Hmm. Okay. So, like now coming back to the topic of cloud technologies and open source we talked about. So, in a lot of companies, like what I have seen, the thing is to directly use AWS or some other cloud technologies and just use those technologies to build a system. even like some big companies, like even let's say example of Hotstar, it also uses a lot of cloud technologies, and they have built a great system around it. So,
Yeah.
like, how much of your work has been like related to these cloud technologies, and instead of that, like, have building something from scratch, have you experienced that also in your career?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say earlier in my career, when cloud wasn't a big thing, we were
Hmm.
mostly building stuff from scratch. Not
Hmm.
scratch, I would say. Of course, we were using some basic
Yeah.
open source tooling or something that was already there, like some libraries. Uh, but it was more often than now.
Hmm.
Now it has become very easy to quickly access any cloud
Yeah.
API, any cloud system, and that is great because you don't
Hmm.
want to solve problem that you are not the best at.
Hmm.
So you have a business problem, right? For example, you are an e-commerce application, so you
Hmm.
want to build around e-commerce and not develop, let's say, search product, for example.
Hmm.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Hmm.
because for search you may just end up using Elasticsearch because it
Yeah.
just works for you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's okay to it's a typical build versus buy problem,
Hmm.
and it depends on the company context. So if you're
Hmm.
working at a startup, you have very little manpower. You
Hmm.
can't invest in building something on your
Yeah.
own because
Hmm.
you can't convince the business to, oh, I want to build my own database because it's really cool. And
Yeah.
for example, so you have to convince as well. So if you can
Hmm.
convince, you can build something from scratch.
Hmm.
Nowadays I am more for the buy part of it. If you get
Hmm.
it by just paying some money, use it because you want to focus on the top
Product.
priority of your problem, right? You want to
Hmm.
focus on your business problem and not
Hmm.
some generic engineering problem. For example, if you
Hmm.
have a very unique problem which is not solved yet, definitely go for it. You have no
Hmm.
other option, right?
Yeah.
Still evaluate some of the open source tech,
Hmm.
not necessarily the paid versions or the managed services that the
Hmm.
cloud services or the cloud providers might provide you. But at least looking out for open source is the definite way to go. If you don't find anything out there, no open source, no cloud provider managed service, then you have to build it. There's no other option.
Yeah.
I've seen companies, I've worked with companies who tried to build their own, you know, deployment platform where they would orchestrate the deployments and
Hmm.
do a lot of containerization using
Yeah.
Docker but slightly customization, and they did it for 2 years.
Hmm.
Then the core engineering team left because of
Okay.
course they
Hmm.
had their own ambitions, and then that project was kind of killed, and then they
Okay.
had to start from scratch because they had to use a open source tech which was already there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that is a bad decision. That is something we shouldn't end up in that situation, like, ever, right?
Hmm.
So of course first step is to investigate if there's an external or open source tech which is already solving the problem.
Hmm.
Focus on your business problem and not the core engineering problem. And so I would say uh, 90% of my career has been on uh, using what is available there, and
Okay.
10% where we had to, okay, at least not building from scratch,
Hmm.
but at least tweak what is available there, right? Because it
Hmm.
might not directly suit you. The
Hmm.
majority of things that are open source and are available for free
Hmm.
uh, cannot be used directly in big organizations because of security reasons, because of GDPR, because of several other problems that the open source tech might have, right? So they have
Hmm.
to fork it, they have to, redo some parts of it, they have to add some additional security. So all those tweaking is something that I've seen a lot being done.
Hmm.
But if you think there's a tech out there, no need to build, just use it, focus on your business problem. Unless if you are a database company, you are building a database, of course you have to build
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
But
Obviously.
if that is not the core, if that is not the core of your business problem, then no, buying is the best thing. And this is what
Hmm.
I've seen.
So, what did you like more, like using these technologies or like building something from scratch?
um, I think when I was a junior developer or like mid-size or even senior developer, uh, I would say I liked more building stuff. But
Mm.
once you have like a very high level responsibility, and you have to
Mm.
convince people, you have to talk to them, you
Mm.
have to face stakeholders that why have you taken certain decisions, then I would say no, because buying
Okay.
makes more sense.
Awesome.
If
Yeah.
you don't have to face tough questions, of course
Mm.
go build it, because someone else will answer the questions on your behalf, right?
Yeah.
So from an engineering perspective, um, yeah, building makes more sense, or it's
Mm.
more interesting. But
Mm.
from like a good engineer perspective, who also thinks about the business, who also thinks about the company,
Mm.
I would say buying makes more sense.
Yeah. So, like, what your role involves now, being a staff software developer? Like, what it used to like? Do you still write code and design systems?
Yeah, yeah. So I think staff engineering has different meanings in different companies. So
Mm.
I cannot comment of on general staff engineering. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading a lot on staff engineering in general, and there are like different flavors to it. So there's a famous book on staff engineering from Will Larson.
Okay.
So that book gives you a lot of insights into how big companies are looking at staff engineering as
Mm.
a position, or as a as people in their company. So that definitely is not mature enough, to be honest. There's
Mm.
a lot of companies who talk about staff engineering, but then it's more like a senior engineer.
Mm.
There's a lot of companies who have really dedicated uh, strategic goals for staff engineers. There's a lot of companies who are still trying to figure out, okay, what works best. Do we really
Mm.
need staff engineering, or it's just another very senior engineer, for example? Talking about my personal experience, I am heavily involved in coding, and that's
Okay.
what my role expectations are.
Mm.
I have to, I think the expectations change.
Mm.
So if you become a senior engineer and then a staff engineer, the expectations are different, because
Mm.
they expect more from you, so they will give you more challenging tasks. They will give you more number of tasks depending on your efficiency. They'll give you problems that are not solved before.
Okay.
So I think that has definitely changed. So I am
Mm.
expected to be more on problems that, so there are so senior engineers are given problems that people know what the solutions are, right? But
Mm.
company knows, oh, this is the
Yeah.
solution. Senior engineers, they trust the senior engineers, they can do it on their own without a lot
Mm.
of hand holding. And they trust them to deliver good quality code.
Mm.
Even more senior, or let's say staff or principal engineers, they know the problem, but they don't know the solution. So
Mm.
they trust them to find the solution and find the best solution.
Mm.
In some companies, they don't even know the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
they want to innovate. So
Mm.
in some companies, staff engineering and principal engineering is more about identifying the problems and then solving
Mm.
it. So it's more like
Okay.
a, okay, you are on your own, no one is
Mm.
going to tell you what to work on, but
Mm.
you have to create your own impact, right? So figure
Mm.
out problems. It can be problem in developer efficiency, it can be problem in incident handling, it can
Mm.
be problem in how you deliver code, or how you
Mm.
deploy code. It can be in interviewing,
Mm.
hiring, all that. So there's a lot of I would say non-functional requirements from that
Mm.
standpoint that comes into picture. And talking about my role, I work with a team. I write a lot of code. I
Okay.
also embed with different teams depending on
Mm.
their resourcing. Uh, Everyone in the team is responsible for designing systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a top down decision model or something. So
Mm-hmm.
of course you will have like a say to it, like what you think is better.
Mm.
You can also discuss with other engineers. You have more visibility, definitely,
Mm.
because you are involved in a lot of other meetings as compared to a senior engineer.
Mm.
um, but yeah, I think you have more visibility, you have more expectations,
Mm.
you have all the same things that a senior engineer would do, plus some
Plus.
additional things. But that can change, to be honest. So if you think about staff engineer at Google, that will be completely different. I don't know
Mm.
anything about that. If
Mm.
you talk about staff engineer at, let's say, a startup, that
Mm.
may be completely different,
Completely
because
different. Yeah.
it's not very organized, it's not very standardized there.
Mm.
For HubSpot, it's a completely different story. It's still maturing. It's a new role, I would say.
Mm.
New in the sense a lot of people, or a very few people are at this level at HubSpot. So they are still trying to figure out. They're hiring people from outside. So yeah, it's still growing, I would say.
Okay. So like at this higher role, like whenever you have to switch a company or change, look, you're not liking it and you want to switch a different company. So how much role does data success and algorithms play in the interviews? Because in most of the uh, big tech companies, they expect data success and algorithms interviews for even till the senior engineers level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it does matter.
Okay.
It's I wouldn't say it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in a way that, that is the thing used for filtering out candidates that might
Hmm.
be better at other things. They are just out of touch with, writing code using, or problem solving, lead code style, for example,
Yeah.
right? They might be out
Hmm.
of touch. So I wouldn't force those kind of candidates to, grind for 4 months just to appear for an interview. So that
Hmm.
feels a little odd, but unfortunately that's the case.
Hmm.
Whenever you switch to a company, at least the big tech companies, they expect you to write code.
Hmm.
They cannot give you like a very realistic problem, so they have to
Hmm.
give you a made up problem, or kind of
Hmm.
the lead code style problem, which is fine. It
Hmm.
just should not be that crazy.
Hmm.
But for me, yes, the companies I have interviewed with, like the startups, Twilio, interviewed with some of the growing startups, or let's say scale ups that are doing
Hmm.
really great. They have really amazing engineering positions. They are trying to change this slightly. So
Okay.
they will
Hmm.
give you tasks that are not directly from lead code. They will
Hmm.
give you like a problem statement that is very open ended, that is
Hmm.
very open for questions. So you have to ask questions, you have to clarify, and then code it up on a live coding platform, or you can
Hmm.
also take it home depending on the type of
Okay.
project. So a lot
Hmm.
of companies are doing it, and then they take that project in the next interview. So they
Hmm.
discuss with you. They discuss about the trade-offs that you have made. They discuss about the coding patterns you have used, or
Hmm.
the documents you have written. Because
Hmm.
as a senior engineer, okay, I can just give the code which is running. um, as a more senior engineer or a staff engineer, I would be expected to give them like a readme, like how
Hmm.
you have to run this code, what trade-offs you have made, what assumptions you have made, what is the limitation, what would you do if you had more time, all those kind of
Hmm.
things, right? So if you do it on your own, that's even better. But yeah, DSA is not going anywhere. It will be
Okay.
there.
Hmm.
uh, it it might not be as crazy as for freshers, or
Hmm.
recent graduates, or even SD ones.
Hmm.
But yes, there is definitely some part always. And
Okay.
uh, I don't think it's wrong. It's just uh, a crazy thing to do for some of the companies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so like this has been really amazing about all the things that you talked about. So like now I would like to talk about your podcast which you are running on your YouTube channel which you recently started. So like what's your goal with that podcast? What you're trying to accomplish and what's your long-term view with that?
Yeah. So I started my podcast called The Geek Narrator around
Hmm.
5 months ago, and
Hmm.
I always wanted to do it, maybe since 1 year,
Hmm.
but I did not have enough. I would say enough courage or enough motivation.
Hmm.
I always thought I wouldn't be consistent, so I never recorded even my first episode. And
Okay.
as I said previously, that taking the first step clarifies a lot of things for you.
Hmm.
So I did my first episode, which was back 5 months back,
Hmm.
and I got this feeling, okay, I can do this. It's
Hmm.
not that bad. I can find more topics, and then I did some more, and then
Hmm.
that solidified my understanding. Okay, this is something I actually love doing, right? So
Hmm.
why not do it more, in a more structured manner? So I
Hmm.
started looking out for topics, I started researching, I started looking out for experts. I got some really great feedback that
Hmm.
initially I was like like a podcast creation machine. Oh, if I
Okay.
have three recorded sessions, I would
Mm.
like to record or release them,
Immediately.
immediately, right? But that I think Arpit Bhyani told me
Mm-hmm.
that okay, it's best to release one
Mm-hmm.
every week,
Mm-hmm.
and that has helped me a lot because you don't have pressure because you
Mm.
have recorded episodes. You
Yeah.
have So right now I have, let's say, 4 recorded episodes, so I'm done for like next 1 month. Even if something
Okay.
happens at work, if I get really busy personally, I don't have time to record, it's totally fine because I have 1 month time. At the
Mm.
background I keep recording, I keep thinking about the topics, I keep reaching out to people, so that is still happening. So
Mm.
my goal is, first is to definitely keep learning and keep growing my network because I talk to all these amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is to create this culture of deep technical discussions and not
Okay.
just shallow discussions,
Mm.
and not just quick discussions, okay, or spoon feeding type of discussions. It's
Mm.
more like a conversation where you can go really deep, understanding some technology, and more importantly being curious.
Mm.
So because even if you read a book, even if you read anything which is very standard, you should
Mm.
have questions, you should
Yeah.
have some contradictions to make. So I want my audience to um, ask questions, share contradictions, share their feedback, and
Mm.
be more curious to explore more in the technical side of the engineering, or the technical side of the podcast. So yeah,
Okay.
that's my long term goal, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like I would also love to watch your podcast. I've watched like 3, 4 episodes and I really like them. The Kafka one,
Thank
the
you.
Kafka series part one and part two, they were really nice.
Yeah,
And like there's one podcast in which you're doing the reading the white paper of Bitcoin. Yeah, so I
yeah,
also read the Bitcoin white paper, I think a year back, like, and it involved a lot of different things which you can actually question.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's my most recent episode, and I've got some really good feedback. So I really
mhm,
hope that people like these tech deep dives into different aspects or
mhm.
different topics, and that are kind of lengthy. It's not like 15-20 minutes of
Yeah,
videos, but it's lengthy because I cannot make shorter videos.
mm.
Otherwise, you cannot go that deep.
Yeah, you cannot go deep.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I would love to create more episodes. And thanks for watching the episodes on Kafka.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I really loved this session. Got to know from your perspective of so much of experience. I am also kind of just a mid-senior level. I've just completed 3 years, 3.5 years in my engineering journey, and there is a long way to go. So this
Yeah,
was really helpful session
definitely.
for me also, and I think this will be for a lot of other people who see this. So thanks for taking
Awesome.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you so much.
enjoyed a lot, and I have also recently started following you on LinkedIn, and the post that you're making is definitely insightful.
Mhm.
You are doing a lot of research, so keep doing that. And I
Yeah,
also look forward to collaborate with you more.
sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.